Good morning. Hope everyone is doing good. So myself, Hanuma, I'm the teacher for these sessions, trainer for these sessions. So mainly in this session, we'll cover the topics related to the uh, why the playwright, what is the playwright, and in this total curriculum, what we are going to learn and how it will be used over the industry, and whether you are from programming background or non-programming background, whether you are able to uh, you'll able to crack the interviews, how you can prepare for the interviews for the playwright. So all these things we can discuss. If you have any doubts, you can ask me at the end of the session. Once I just gave some info points about the playwright. Okay. So I'll just go through the playwright, what is playwright and why we are choosing the playwright nowadays. Instead of Selenium, people are migrating to the playwright. So, so myself, Hanuma, I have around 9 years of experience. I was working in a top one of the product-based company. So first of all, when you are when you are coming to Playwright, Playwright is an automation tool, but why we need automation first of all? So the automation comes into a picture in the legacy 2005 or 2006. Around the time there is no automation tool, only the QTP or QTP is there at the time, but there is a very less scope for the automation, but rapidly it was increased for the automation testing. So why we are going with the automation testing? It's a practice of using the automation tools to increase the tester's efficiency, whatever the common task we do on daily basis, or either smoke testing or sanity testing or regression testing. So whatever we do on daily basis, so these things, it consumes a lot of time for each and every tester who is doing the testing for their product. So obviously they are spending around 1 hour or 2 hours on everyday basis to test these functionalities on everyday basis. But when you adapt for the automation, what we'll do is, so it is having some set of tools where you can utilize and you can customize your effort and you can write one-time scripts which will help you over the long time to increase your efficiency. Okay, so suppose let's take a simple example. So on everyday basis, you will be working on some smoke and sanity testing for the for your application on everyday basis in the morning, and you might be came across some of the regression test cases on everyday you will be testing. So these things it might take our 1 hour or 1.5 hour. It hardly take 1 hour, 1.5 hour if you are more flexible with your application. So if it is 1.5 hour also, if you count for a month, the month count will be around 45 hours you will be spending on smoke and sanity testing itself. So these 45 hours, how can you utilize in other testing areas where you can increase the quality of the product? So that's where the automation testing comes into the picture. You can utilize the automation testing tools to implement some scripts or the day-to-day regular activities, which will increase our efficiency. So that's why we are going for the automation testing. Okay, so then in the automation scope, we have many tools which comes under licensed and non-licensed free version. So the main licensed versions there are many in the market, but in the open source market, but there is a very few which is demanding, and most of the users are adopting to that tools. Those are the first one is a Selenium, which is there almost from 2010 onwards. So almost 14 years journey with the Selenium people are having, but now people are migrating to the Playwright. What is there in Playwright nowadays? Why? Because in Selenium there are some drawbacks where the Selenium team is not able to make that drawbacks till now. So the main one is auto weight sync mechanism. So where we need to make the everything user has to make that some changes or has to write their own checks for each type, for each identification of element or the page synchronization between the uh, between the script and the script and the browser. So the Playwright is a browser based tool. Selenium or Playwright is a web-based browser tool. So where you can utilize to automate the all the web-based test cases. So whatever you test on the web browsers on everyday basis, either you are working on the mobile-based browser or you are working on the desktop browser, both can be automated using Playwright. And so what are the feasibilities what Playwright provides for our testing? So we have some concepts called what we do on daily basis. So we'll be doing some clicking on the buttons or filling on the forms or navigating to the pages, validating some content over the page. Okay, so these are the regular contents which we validate on the everyday basis when we are doing a manual testing or functional testing. So these things has been used in the Playwright. So the same thing we can implement using a Playwright here. Okay, so additional to that, Playwright supports a framework architecture. It doesn't have, it is having a inbuilt framework architecture. You no need to adapt for any other additional frameworks, and it is having a another support which is a API. So it supports the API automation as well. So the API automation, so whenever you are going for a web automation or mobile automation testing, either most of the people ask what you have, whether mobile and web, both will you have or not, and the additional requirement will be API. So if you have these three things in your hand, then you will be able to crack this interview, any interview, because people will ask a combinational set of skill sets. They won't look for a skill set. So that's why this course is mainly covering these type of three main things. One is a mobile-based web browser testing. So it's a like we are going to test on the responsive mode of a mobile testing here, and the desktop browser testing and the API. So what are the API calls we do on daily basis through using Postman? Those how we can use the Playwright to trigger the API request. Okay, and then we have, so why the Playwright is adopting more compared to Selenium. So if you take a last 6 months or 8 months trend, more than Selenium, Playwright downloads are crossed the Selenium downloads. Why? Because it is having a huge language support bindings. So it supports the JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, C Sharp, Java. The same things has been supported by Selenium also, but thing is why people are adapting to the Playwright, because Playwright internal having some beautiful mechanisms where it automatically wait for some elements. It is having some checks on interacting with element. So for each, so the element in the sense here, when you are filling some text box over the UI, so for that text box there is a one element is behind in that one element will be drafted in the HTML page, that will be called as an element. So that element, how the Playwright is interacting that element. So suppose let's take a simple example. So when you want to fill a text box, what checks you have to do at the time of filling the text box? First you have to check whether the text box is displayed over the page or not. So once the text box is displayed, again you need to check whether it is a it is a stable or not. So stable in the sense, so once the page is totally loaded, then only you will able to find the stable element. Or else what will happen is, without the page loading is not completed, when you are trying to access that particular element, what will happen is the reference of the element is keep on changing because the page is still loading. So that's why it checks the whether the element is stable or not. Then the third check is it checks whether the element is editable or not. When we want to fill some data, we have to know this particular text box is editable or not. If it is not editable, we won't be able to fill the data, right? So these are the three checks which we have to manually check when we are going to fill some text box, right? So these three checks will be handled internally by Playwright team, but when comes to the Selenium, You have to handle each and everything, and there is a one more thing which is a stable, then the stable element, we have the mechanism in the Selenium where we need to use a JavaScript executor to know the page status, but the page status will work as for the standard applications. But sometimes what will happen in this React based applications, so it won't render the total page, it will render a small set of script in that particular page. So the total page status will be in the completed state, but you won't be able to identify the element because it is still rendering in the backend without refreshing the page in the React elements. So that's why Selenium has some bottlenecks to find the elements or to check some conditions, but Playwright is having a beautiful mechanism to auto rendering of the elements, how to identify an element, how to wait for that particular element, whether the till the element is visible and the editable. So that's why Playwright is huge adoption is going on from this year. I see there is a lot of people are choosing Playwright as a tool. Okay, so as similar to the Selenium, Playwright supports both browsers, all the browsers which are supported by Selenium as well. And one more thing is in terms of browsers, in Selenium, for every browser version, when you are getting some browser version, when there is a new version, a new browser version is launched, automatically we have to download the latest driver and we have to update our repository. So this is again a huge manual effort where we need to keep on tracking whether any browser version is changed. So to overcome this, the Playwright has having a beautiful feature where it takes care of everything in a single package. It downloads its own set of browsers. Whatever you want the browsers to run your test cases, it downloads that browser. It is tightly coupled with those browsers, and it will run your test cases on that browsers. But even it is having a flexibility where you want to run your test cases in a specific Chrome browser version. It is having a that flexibility as well. You can run your test cases to a specific browser version also. Okay, so that's why people are adapting to the Playwright compared to Selenium. Whoever is coming to the industry, most of the people are going with the Playwright instead of going with the Selenium. Okay, so these are the major differences. The why Playwright versus Selenium. So the Playwright is having all set of browsers which are supported by Selenium as well. So the Internet Explorer, which is old, so Microsoft itself, they are degrading the Internet Explorer. That's why it is not supported by the Playwright. So that's why they are not giving the support for the Internet Explorer currently. And Playwright supports a Microsoft Edge browser, and the same way Selenium also it supports a Edge browser. And the language support, it supports all major languages. So when you see the language bindings who most of the people are adopted, so it will be a top level will be if you see the Java will be a top list. When you say the second list will be a TypeScript or JavaScript will come as a single entity. So most of the people, when it comes to the UI technologies who are working on the UI and the automation side, who are working on the automation side, they will use most of the people will use either Java or the TypeScript or JavaScript, or the next is Python. So this is the sequence most of the people will adopt. And when you see the accuracy, or when you see the adoption perspective, so most of the people in terms of Playwright bindings, they are going with the TypeScript because of the Playwright documentation itself. They are suggesting to go with the TypeScript where you have more features comparatively others, where they are providing a flexible framework directly in the TypeScript, and they have some sort of reporting sections, everything, and it supports a huge type of different reports: Allure report, monocot report, and there are cross section report. There are three types of reports which will be same visual representation of how many test cases are passed, failed, all the things you have. That's why Playwright team also suggesting to go Playwright with TypeScript. Okay, but it supports the same way as the other languages also, but their preference to go with the TypeScript. So the main this session we are going with a Playwright with the TypeScript. Okay, then we have a documentation part where we have something a little bit lag in the Playwright because it is started 4 years back in 2020. It is started. So in these 4 years nobody will adopt immediately because so as I have worked on Playwright almost 2.5 years I worked on Playwright. Why? Because my intention was initially the Playwright. Why the Playwright is coming from the Microsoft organization where it you know the trust from fact-based companies, right? When something new is coming from these companies, you can trust that they will do the enhancements to that frameworks. So if you take Selenium, which is supported by the open source vendors in sense how we are the testers, the same type of testers will support Selenium for the implementation or support. But Playwright having a dedicated team where they will frequently releases the upgrades or fixes in the Playwright. But Selenium will not be like that. You will see a fixes every 2 months or 3 months. They will do some fixes when you report something. But Playwright is not like that. When you have some roadblocker, if you try to explain that roadblocker to the Playwright team, either they will give you a suggestion how you can achieve that roadblocker, how you can clear out that. But in terms of community, Playwright is a growing community compared to Selenium because Selenium is almost 14 years. Whenever you try to find some solution, you will get that solution in the Selenium very dead easily. But what Selenium has some of the actions, some of the functionality itself, it is not properly designed in the Selenium. So if you take a actions class in the Selenium, that actions class, some of the elements it will work, some of the elements will not. It will not work on some of the element types. So that's why Selenium has some drawbacks when it is automating with a React-based application, especially or new trending lightning applications. But Playwright supports everything whatever it is comes whatever the elements is either React or the lightweight components like a cloud-based applications, either Salesforce or SAP CRM, anything it supports by the Playwright. Okay, so all the browsers, whatever we are mentioning in the Playwright, it supports the headless mode. So the headless mode in the sense, headed mode is something like where you are visually seeing the execution of a your particular test case. When you are running for your test case, it will be visually you are able to see the total execution. That will be called as a headed mode. And headless mode is something like your test case will run in a without what it will be run in a virtual mode where it won't display the graphical user interface to the users. It will launch the particular browser in a virtual mode and it execute the test cases and it give the result to us. So most of the times we use this headless modes when we are running over the pipelines. Okay, so when we are running in a local, we'll use a headed mode for our execution to see the how the execution is happening in our local. Okay, so that's the difference between the headless and headed mode. So all browsers are supported by Playwright, but Selenium supports only Chrome and Firefox headless mode. So the remaining browsers headless mode is not supported by Selenium. Okay, so the same major operating system is supported by Playwright and Selenium. There is no difference in the operating system support. And the compare it to execution. So how the execution is in Playwright and Selenium. Playwright is too fast in the free licensed market compared to other tools. Either if you take a Cypress or Selenium or some other X tool also, Playwright is the fastest open source tool which executes our test cases very fast. We'll see more differences in the next session. Next slide. So browser drivers. So Playwright, as I already told, Playwright supports inbuilt drivers. It is having it bundled with the drivers. You don't need to explicitly call the drivers to install or manage those drivers. But Selenium have that dependency where something browser version is changed. You have to update your driver version in your local. or sometimes you might have to download that browser manually and you have to update it. Okay. And I have one thing to show you.
Can I
So
ask one
this is,
question?
yes.
Yeah, so I saw particularly the headless mode thing. So just wanted to
Mm,
understand, does it mean that unlike Selenium, uh, when we run scripts in Selenium, I usually see whatever information we are feeding into the browser, into the
mm,
text boxes or the button clicking and all. So you mean that when it
mm.
runs in headless mode, we can't see anything which is happening on the screen on the browser?
It won't load graphical to the user when you are running over the pipeline. It loads in a virtual mode, and but it will be visible. But we can't graphically see that browser is loading and the test case is running.
Okay,
So everything is the same, but it runs in a backend. Okay, you won't see the execution how it is working. That's it.
okay,
Okay,
thank you.
so and we have a few little bit differences why we are opting for the Selenium and Playwright. So if you take a Playwright, when you want to implement some script in a Playwright, it takes hardly 10, 20 to 30 minutes. And Selenium, it will take a 30 minutes if you want to implement a single login session also. But a Playwright takes 20 minutes of time. So the comparative wise also the scripting is almost you are decreasing one by third in the Playwright. And comparatively, Playwright having some locator strategies where it identifies the element you easily based on the whatever graphically user is seeing the elements either by text or label or by title or some role based, so it is having some locator strategies to identify the elements. Okay, so based on those locators it identifies the elements based on the browser rendering also. Okay, you no need to manage the synchronization in the Playwright. Everything is taken care by the Playwright internally. But in Selenium you have to write your own concept where you have to use the WebDriver wait. You have to create some waiting mechanism for each type of state. Okay, then we have script effectiveness. So script effectiveness is more in Playwright compared to Selenium. Why? Because when we implement a Playwright, so automatically the script effectiveness is more because the flakiness of a test cases is very less. The flakiness in the sense when you have some 100 test cases, so if you are running those 100 test cases over the pipeline, you will see hardly 80% of a success, 20% of a failure, where every day you might need to run those tests again. You have to go with those 20 test cases and manually checks whether those test cases are either really bug or real failure due to the script maintenance issues. So that's why that came into the script effectiveness where the Playwright having a auto wait mechanisms, it wait for the exact elements or the page loading exactly. So that's why the script effectiveness is more in the Playwright. Okay, when I say the pass rate already in the Playwright it uses a auto mechanism. That's why it is able to find the exact element which element it has to interact. So if the element is stable, it will directly interact with that element. If the element is changed or if it is having a duplicate elements, then only it will fail the Playwright, or else it won't fail the script in the Playwright at all the times. Okay, when the element is changed or when the element is having a duplicate occurrences, so when you gave some XPath or CSS locator or some role based or Playwright locator strategies, you have to identify the element in a unique way. Okay, but in Selenium how it works is it it tries to identify the first element to validate or to continue with the execution. So the main drawback of identifying the first element is when the user is having some single element at initial time, after some time the developer has added a similar element in the bottom or top of the page. So what will happen is it is try to find the first element. So when the developer added a new element on top of the page with the same syntax of the element, then what will happen? It tries to find the first element. It will find the first element in the HTML DOM. It perform the action on that particular element. But unfortunately, we should not allow to click on that particular element or send the text to that particular element. So that's why we have to give the unique identity for each element in any of the scripts. Okay, so Playwright have something like that. When you have a duplicate elements, so it automatically throw that error. It is a duplicate elements are there. So it gives the mechanism. So these are the duplicate elements. Which element you want to click? It is having a intelligent AI model where it uses all the elements related to that. It gives the locator strategies as well for each locator for each element. So which element you want me to click? So it will ask again. You can fix that script with that particular element strategy which you want to click on. You can update your locator and you can easily run your script. But Selenium, it's not like that. When something is failed, you have to go and debug each and every value, whether how many elements are there, which element it is able to find that element, and you have to debug a lot. That's why the difference comes into a picture when you are debugging or tracing in the play between the Playwright and Selenium. Okay, so the execution time. So as we already discussed, compared to Selenium, Playwright is a more faster than any other tool which is there in the market, in the free market, open source. Okay, Selenium takes 10 minutes. The Playwright will take 5 minutes only for the total execution of that particular test case. So if you take 100 test cases over a execution, so that 100 test cases in Selenium, it is taking 15 minutes for the execution in a parallel mode, but Playwright takes maximum 7 to 10 minutes for the total execution. So you will see a drastical downgrade of the execution time. So why we will look for the execution time very less is when there is a some feature was released, we might have to report the execution results immediately once it is deployed to that particular environment. Then we have to run our test cases. We have to give the results to the sign off. So that case, if I say my Selenium test case will take 3 hours or 2 hours for the total suit true to run and give the report whether all test cases are passed and everything we are good to go with the production release. So it is a hard right in Selenium, but in the Playwright it is reducing almost half of the time. So we can able to give faster compared to Selenium the execution report also. And the test analysis where this is comes into a picture, most of the testers will spend almost 1/4 of their time every day for fixing the test cases itself. Okay, so why? Because when we have some thousands of test cases on everyday basis, we are running those 1,000 test cases. It is very hard to maintain those scripts and analysis those scripts whatever the failures are happened. So every script we have to go and identify which is failed, why it is failed, and we have to know the DOM structure of that particular where it is failed. So if you take a Selenium, how it works is, so something is failed, you will capture some screenshot. Something is failed, it will throw some the error. So why it was failed, element is not found or whatever it is. And you have to go to the DOM structure and you have to validate. You have to manually go and check why it is failed exactly, whether the element is loaded on that particular time or not loaded. This is where it takes a lot of time in the Selenium, but Playwright having some traceability mechanism where you have some screenshots and you have some traceability options, and you can capture the page DOM structure at that particular time, and it captures the video of the total execution. So you no need to go to the you need to go to the manually to the browser and execute all the steps till that particular step wherever it is failed. It's not required in the Selenium. You by going through the test execution video itself, you can able to identify why that particular element is not loaded, and you can see that if the element is loaded in the Playwright, it is having a locator strategy. It tries to identify unique locator. If it is having a duplicate locator, it will show in the report. You just replace that locator strategy which you want, which element you want to interact. So obviously it will interact with that particular element going forward. But Playwright in the Selenium, you have to identify again the element, and you have to write your own XPath again, and you have to update the total script accordingly. Okay, so that's why the major difference between the Selenium and Playwright, and the most of the users are migrating to the Playwright nowadays from Selenium. So whatever the new projects has been launched, which is having a only web-based and API scope, then they are going with a Playwright. Who are having a Selenium with a mobile app testing as well, then they will go with the Selenium. Okay, still there are Selenium advantages where it supports APM. That's why still when you have a scope of mobile testing, then people are going with the Selenium. But when they have only web-based automation, I mean desktop browser or mobile browser automation and the API automation, the most of the people are supporting the Playwright. They are migrating to the Playwright because of the flexibility. Which increases our efficiency, our which will give easy to handle or easy to implement everything. That's where the people will move on. So that's where the Playwright comes into a picture. It is having a beautiful mechanism, everything. The even non-programming background people also easily learn and implement their framework. Okay, so for this framework we have mainly three types of elements. I mean, three types of setups are required, three tools. So those are VS Code. So in the VS Code we have to install TypeScript and as well as plugins, some of the ESLint plugin and Playwright plugins as well, and the Node.js. So every JS program will runs on a node in the local. When you take in the browser, suppose if you are running some application that that will be run on the Chromium node-based engine, Chrome V8 engine. So that will run the Chrome, that will run the same node modules. From that engine only, the node was copied and it was upgraded based on the requirements. Okay, so these are the three tools and the Git for the version repository, and these are the some of the plugins which we installed on the VS Code. Okay, and when it comes to the curriculum, I'll just go through the curriculum what we are going to. So in this curriculum, we'll mainly focus on the real project-based execution, where we'll implement some of the scripts and we'll implement some of the frameworks which we use on the real-time projects. Okay, so here is the Playwright training content. So as today I have given some of the introduction content to the Playwright, and there are few more things to add. So in the first class, I will add those points in the introduction. Then we have whatever the setup is required, will do the live installation. So if anybody having, we can I can provide a support for the installation as well, but it won't take much time. If you spend half an hour, you will be able to set up everything. Then once you have done the setup, so what I will do is I'll stop till now. Then I'll start with the TypeScript basics. So the TypeScript, why the TypeScript, why we are choosing the TypeScript, and what are the benefits of choosing the TypeScript. So these concepts I will cover in the first session. So those things are not added here. Then we have something related to the TypeScript concepts, the whoops concepts, and the async await mechanisms, whatever is required for your framework implementation or real-time usage. Those things will cover as part of a TypeScript basics. It will take 4 to 5 sessions. Okay, within a week we can complete those things. Once we are comfortable with the TypeScript, then we'll jump onto the Playwright. So we'll create a standard how we can install the Playwright project, how we can set up the total project, and how we can run first web script on all the browsers, and first API script on all the browsers. Okay, and how we can set up a test runner, Playwright test runner. What are the options are available in the Playwright test runner? And the recording. So the recording comes with a three features. One is a recording, another one is an inspector, another one is a debugger. Three features which is having in the Playwright inspector itself. So you can record the session whatever you want. So the same thing we can use in our scripts as well, the same recording script. And we have a debugger which is also present in the same inspector. And the inspector is something like how you can identify the element in the normal Chrome dev tools. The same way Playwright inspector also, it identifies the element whichever you want. Okay, it gives the locator, Playwright locator strategy. It gives based on the locator strategy, it will suggest which strategy you have to use, and what is the value of that particular element. Okay, then we have Playwright configuration. So we have many types of options in this Playwright configuration, where you have to set up the reporters, and you have to set up where the my test files are located, and the base URL and web browser navigation timeouts, everything will configure here. And the project definitions, the project definitions is something like how many browsers you want to execute all the scripts. Suppose if you have 10 scripts, if you want to execute 10 scripts in a 4 browsers, so how many executions you will see? The 40 test cases it will split, and it will execute in a 4 browsers. 4 into 10 test cases, 40 test cases it will create, and it will run the test cases across all the browsers. Okay, then those configuration also will be taken care in the Playwright configuration. Then we have it capturing the element attributes. So capturing element attributes is something like we have some generic methods capturing the web attributes. And so Playwright works on the most of the element attributes. So how to identify those attributes, how I can write your own locator strategies using Playwright locator strategies, those things will cover in the this particular one. And synchronization, it won't take much time, but I was specifically mentioned why, because this is the most important. People will ask why people are choosing for the Playwright, and how the synchronization is happening in the Playwright, how the automate mechanisms are working in Playwright. All these things will cover in the synchronization concept. And after completion of that, we'll go with some of the helper function creations, the utility functions, whatever we frequently use over the framework. Those functions will implement, and will implement some of the page object model, which is frequently or rapidly used across the industry for maintaining the page objects in their framework. And we'll go with the default page object with a Playwright, and we'll have another framework called BDD, behavior driven development. We'll go with this framework as well. So in this total curriculum, we'll mainly focus on two framework. One is a default framework which is provided by Playwright. It will works as the same like as a test engine. If you heard of test engine in Selenium Java, the same way Playwright also having a default framework which works as the same as TestNG. And BDD framework, which is a behavior driven development. So every application having some set of features, every feature has been implemented in some way. So that future behavior has been developed or tested using this behavior driven development model. Okay, so the development also will happen based on the behavior of a future here. So we'll implement this behavior driven development using the Cucumber, which is a Gherkin based language module. Then later in the last, we'll go with some of the API concepts, how we can use the APIs, and how we can how we can implement all different types of methods in this API. Put, post, get, fetch method, delete method, all these methods we can go through each one. Then we have some database connectivity, how we can do through the Playwright. It's not like a Playwright, how we can connect that to the database in the TypeScript. that thing. Okay, and we have something related to the annotations and grouping mechanism and filtering tags. All these things will go in the last sessions. Okay, any doubts as of now? You can raise your doubts now.